All right, here we go. Week 4. This is it. Okay. This is the final week. I've asked, like I've done, every week now, that we actually do the tasks that I've assigned. And the first thing we need to do is review those tasks, and we don't need to go through them item by item because they're real familiar to me at this point. But there's a purpose in why I do this each week. You need to take it upon yourself to kind of evaluate, how you've done on these tasks, the activities. You heard me say that, the secret is to be just more consistent and do the activities. So, how have you done on all these activities I've asked you to do for a month now, or near a month? Those open house results, how did you do in the open house last week? And then, what's real important to you would be to follow my advice on what I said over this last week, to have contact with 3 different salespeople and learn from them. What did they do that you liked? What did they do that you would never do, to a customer or a client? And I do sales seminars, and most of the things I learned in sales have come from other salespeople. And I want to stretch your imagination a little bit here. I'm going to get your minds going. I'm going to give you one example, then we're going to launch into week 4's activities, all right? I learned from, and I'm going to, instead of telling you a 3-minute story to make the point, I'm going to do it in like 60 seconds. I learned from a car salesman in 1978 things that I began using in real estate that made me quite a bit of money. When I drove, I drove this fancy sports car, and I was really vacillating. Can I really afford this? Should I do this? Does this make sense to me? And we're out driving around this Ferrari, all right? And the salesman says to me, he said, as long as we're out, I've got time if you'd like to. Is there anyone you'd like to show the car to? I said, really? I can do that? Well, there's the end of that story, all right? I paid more for this Ferrari than I had the condo I was living in. But I sat down the next day, and I had a legal tablet, and I wrote down everything that John, that was his name, everything John had said and done that maybe brought me to the point where I bought the Ferrari. And I learned a great deal. And I'll just tease you one little thing. Here's what I'm after, trying to get you to learn from other salespeople. In real estate, I had never been introduced to the idea, on occasion, if I'm working with a buyer and they're looking at a house and they're just, they're just not sure, I begin to ask buyers, is there anyone you'd like to show the home to? Would you like to bring somebody over here maybe later today or tomorrow? Get their opinion on the house. Here's what I learned. Friends, siblings endorse a sale. Parents destroy a sale. So if they say, hey, could I have my sister look at it? You bet. I'll make that happen. Because the sister's probably going to say, oh, God, you love living in this house. Oh, we could do this, we could do that. If they say, yeah, could my parents come and look at it? Absolutely. But you know what I suggest? So we don't waste your parents' time? Why don't we see if we can even get a deal together? Let's see if we can even make an offer that's acceptable to everybody involved, and we'll make the sale subject to, your parents taking a look at it in whatever, 48 hours or so. Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Because you know what else I learned? Parents are reluctant to void a sale once there's been an emotional commitment from the children and the other party. Did I say this? Will make sense to you? So, is that clever? Is that slick? No. To me, that is understanding human nature, because a great salesperson does nothing more than get the customer in a position to make a decision whether they choose to purchase or not. That's what a great salesperson does. A great salesperson does not sell something to someone. They put them in a position for them to make a decision. They put them on the fence so they have to go one way or the other. Does that make sense to you? That's what great salespeople do. And you use sales skills to develop that. So learn from these salespeople. I could not emphasize more strongly how I feel about that. So we're going to talk in this last week about listings, the lifeblood of the industry. We got to have listings. We all know that. Even in slower markets, nothing happens without inventory. Nothing. And so we've got to have listings. And you need to ask yourself, why will people list with you in today's market? It's because they've got to be impressed with your competence. You've got to have that strong relationship, so when they get a referral from someone, they listen to that person, they put a lot of trust in that person. So we're going to talk about the most important question I've ever learned to ask sellers. Without anything, even I don't even know what number 2 is. This is how important number 1 is. The question you ask the seller when you walk into the home, good friend, total stranger, makes no difference. When you tour the home, warm up, whatever you feel is appropriate. When you sit down at the dining room table, I ask them some form of this question, and that is, what are the 3 most important things you want to discuss? What are the 3 most important things you'd like to talk about tonight? That is my listing presentation right there in 1 sentence. Here's what I learned. When you ask someone the 3, there you are again, prioritizing their response. What are the 3 or 4 most important things you want me to cover today? What would those things be? The most experienced person out there watching this series, the very first time you experiment with this question, I will tell you what your net result will be. And that is, you will reduce your listing presentation time instantly by at least 50%. You will quit telling sellers all the things you've learned are important, and you will only tell them things they what? Want to hear. What a novel approach to sales. And I didn't do this for the first 5 years I was in real estate. And then I was in a seminar listening to my mentor, a guy named Mark Masivic from Las Vegas, Nevada. I learned more from Mark than any person in this industry. And in 1982, a lot of years ago, Mark Masivic said these words. I wrote them down verbatim, and I came back to my town and I began selling real estate differently the next day. You see, what Mark Masivic said that day was this: don't try to be the answer to people's prayers until you know what they're praying for. I just want you to resonate the logic that you just heard. Why would you think you know what they want? And the more experience we have, the more success we've attained, the more we feel we know what sellers want, and we base our presentations on that experience. Huge mistake. The pre-listing package goes back to the dialogue we had in week 3. The power of the packaging itself. A pre-listing package, you've got a checklist of what goes in it. Many of you are with companies and franchises that have a tremendous amount of information. Good for you. I had a checklist. Perhaps you have your own checklist. I had a couple things on there, maybe a little unique to some other people. I've got number 11, my advertising questionnaire. Number 12, my remodel or sell flyer. What is an advertising questionnaire? I asked sellers 2 questions when it came to advertising. 1, which features do you feel should be included in advertising your home? 2, which features do you think we should not include in the advertising? I learned years ago that one of the single biggest reasons we advertise people's homes is simply to keep the seller happy. Yes or no? If that's the truth, does it make sense to you that the seller is more likely to be happy if you let them help you build the ad? You tell me what you think we ought to put in the ad. And I don't want to be flippant here, but the truth is, it doesn't really make a lot of difference what's in the ad, because the ad doesn't sell real estate anyway. A lot of you don't want to accept that, but it's the truth. So give them, you know what else it did? Give them some ownership of the process. Let them help you build the process. I show them market time versus selling price. This is from the National Association of Realtors Economics and Research Division. It shows us what everyone already knows, and that is the longer a home is on the market, the less it finally sells for. It's one thing to tell people things. It's another thing to what? Show them things. These statistics help me get a well-priced listing right up front. The next page, I show in my pre-listing package homes in the same price range, same general area, but homes that were expired listings, a term we use in real estate that's unheard of in the real world. and so I don't use it. I've never used the term expired listings. When I print them out, these are not expired listings. These are homes that failed to sell. One of the cautions that I throw out to you for consideration is do your best to fight the temptation to speak real estate-ese. We lose the consumer when we do that. Food for thought. And then I go out there and I tell them the most your home is going to sell for in today's market is $300,000, and they tell me about the $50,000 they spent the last 2.5 years on room additions and air conditioning, swimming pool, kitchen remodels, landscaping. They want to take the $50,000 and do what with it? Right on top. Okay, you said 300, that makes it 350. We want to leave room to negotiate, so we're thinking like 4.25, something like that. And I'm sure some of you have been there. And when I say to them, just because you spent $50,000 on improvements the last 2.5 years doesn't necessarily mean you get all $50,000 back. Is that the truth, by the way, in today's market? As soon as I say those words, the atmosphere right there at the dining room table changes instantly. I am no longer their advocate. I am now their adversary. Doesn't work. So I began using what I called remodel or sell. I show them the different things people do to their homes for improvements. The middle column is the improvement cost. Forget that. You can't compare one part of the U.S. to another, Canada to the U.S., Australia, New Zealand, Japan, all the different places I go to teach. Forget that middle column. You need to find the cost column for your local market area. You with me on that one? So forget the middle column as far as the don't lock into those numbers. And then the one on the right-hand column is important, and not the only important one, and that's the percentage recoverable. Now, where did it come from? The Institute of Real Estate Appraisers. That's where it comes from. Find out what the recoverable amount is on improvements to homes, and then you can lay it in front of the seller. And it's not you telling them they're only getting 40% back for their landscaping. It's the appraisers telling them that. And it's printed on a piece of paper, which gives it instantly more validity. Yes or no? So, I ask sellers, do you plan on interviewing more than one agent? If they say yes, I suggest two things. Why don't you do yourself a favor? Let me go first. Use me as a comparison for the other agents. And secondly, why don't you have one set of questions? You ask all of us the identical set of questions, because whoever you're most with their answers, impressed with their answers, that's probably who you want to list your home with, which makes a tremendous amount of sense to a seller. So in my pre-listed material, of course, I give them the questions to ask everybody. All right. Now, they're clearly slanted towards me, but look how simple they are. Example number 3. What do you know about the market in my area? When I'm asked, what do you know about the market in my area? My answers are laced with what? Going back to week 1 statistics. My competence screams through to the seller. Most agents are going to be lacking a message of competence. Biggest complaint sellers have. The biggest complaint sellers have. We list their home, they have to call us. We have got to stay on the offensive. We've got to stay on the offensive. I've had dozens and dozens of listings at one time. I know the stress that comes with having lots of inventory and trying to keep these people happy till the home sells. What I'm going to suggest to you is that you call them once a week. Once a week is all you need to do. Now, you're hearing from someone who's had a great number of listings, so I hope you hear this. The significance is not calling them just once a week. The key is to call them on the same day each week. That's the key. Sounds like something really innocent and simple. Trust me when I tell you, if they know they're going to hear from you every Wednesday, if something comes up on Monday, they will almost always wait for the Wednesday phone call. Does that make sense to you guys? Right now, what many people are experiencing in this business is that every time the phone rings, they shudder because they're afraid it's another one of my listings calling because no one's looking at my house. you can eliminate almost all of those phone calls if they know they're going to hear from you on a certain day every single week.